right, y'all, what's up? Welcome in. Hey, that's not us. We are live from Still Hands. As you can hopefully see, it is a bright day. Hopefully not going to be a bright night. They can maybe see us here in a moment. But yeah, welcome in, 5 o'clock edition of GC Live. We are live at Still Hands Brewing. Y'all know the place. We got a great relationship with the folks here, and they're going to be doing some pregame parties this night, obviously, Chris, and then coming up before the Tennessee game as well. So we want to invite everybody out. If you're already in town in Columbia, come on out to Still Hands. They got an oyster roast going on. There's going to be some live music behind us. There's already a lot of people here and throwing down, getting ready for the game. Chris, you're enjoying yourself already, right?
Yeah, we're having a great time out here.
Having a good time, man. We're going to preview the game, talk about it a little bit. This show, of course, as always, brought to you by our buddy Clint Hammond of the Mortgage Network, ClintHammond.com. Man, I know that sun is messing with y'all, so y'all are just going to have to hang with us a little bit. But, Chris, South Carolina, Texas A&M, 7:30 p.m., SEC Network. We've talked about it all week long. Hopefully you've saved a little bit of content for the people here on Friday, going into Saturday. Where's your head at on how this game may play out?
Well, are we going to bury the lead of an official prediction? I mean, we have some crossover listeners. I know I did give my prediction on the Gamecock Central takeover on 107.5 earlier, but I'm gonna make them wait. We can make them wait on that. But here's a little teaser for I think just like a generality of how I think it's going to play out. I mean, you look at the fact that this is probably going to be a close game. I mean, on Monday, if we're doing GC Live on Monday, we're probably not talking about a 42-35 type game or something like that.
I knew you'd be here.
We're probably not talking about a 38-35. You know, I think that would surprise everybody. Not in that it's close, but I think two main things you probably think of, Wes. Probably low scoring, right? And probably a close game. So I think that's kind of the general feel and expectation, certainly mine, going into tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. By the way, there are even Texas A&M fans out here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't expect that. I feel like I know that guy from somewhere. I don't know where. But yeah, an A&M fan. They're here. They got the yell practice going on. Are you gonna be awake when the yell practice is going on?
That's at midnight, right?
I think so.
I can just about guarantee you I won't be.
I'm trying to blot out the sun.
That's a tough thing to do. I extend my bedtime on the weekends a little bit, but it is certainly not midnight most nights.
So I want y'all to help me out here. Anybody going to the Yale practice? I won't be there either. Report back. Like, I've always been genuinely curious about how this works, why you do it at midnight, why you do it on the road. It's a unique tradition. I won't say it's cool. I haven't seen it, but it is a unique tradition. So y'all report back. Let me know about the Yale practice. How is it? What's it all about? Maybe send us some video. I don't know. But, yeah, I think you're right, man. Low scoring, tight game. I feel like, we talked about this earlier in the week. You start to get a feel, or you hope you get a feel for this is how it should play out. And you gather enough information. We know football is unpredictable. We know you can never truly predict what's going to happen. But I feel like most games this year have somewhat followed what you would say is their script. Like, Arkansas game, maybe some people thought South Carolina might upset them. Maybe, Carolina has some things go their way. They win the game. Maybe you have some diehards picking Carolina to beat Georgia or hang tight with Georgia. But for the most part, South Carolina beats Georgia State. It ends up being, it's a close game, but then South Carolina pulls away. The two other games, SC State, Charlotte, went to plan. Can't take much from them. Then you had, what I think everybody was calling a swing game. Once it became kickoff time, and they were especially seeing Will Levis wasn't playing, looked at that game, you thought it could really go either way. It did. South Carolina even maybe won it by a little bit more than people probably would have predicted. All that being said, man, this is the game I have the most trouble predicting because I feel like there's so much these teams do similarly that it's going to come down to those things that are like really hard to predict anyway. Like, I feel like you can take two teams But on any given night, you might have a good night in the red zone. You might have a bad night in the red zone. You might have a good night where the ball just bounces your way, or you might have a day where the ball just does not bounce your way at all if you put the ball on the turf. So to me, this just feels like a game that maybe comes down to those things that are like inherently unpredictable in their nature, because they're two seemingly evenly matched teams.
Well, and the one of the things that is most unpredictable probably is turnovers, right? So I mean, you think about all the games that are evenly matched, and it is going to come down to maybe one or two plays, unless this game goes completely not like we think it's going to go. Um, so yeah, I mean turnovers. But both of these teams have been really affected
How you
by
doing?
turnovers in
Yeah,
the
sign up.
past.
Yep.
You look at
Sorry, we're live right now.
You look at Texas A&M against Bama, for example. They win that game, that turnover margin 4-1. But you look at the Mississippi State game for A&M, they lose it. South Carolina has not been positive in turnover margin in any SEC game this year. Even against Kentucky, they were even at 2 apiece. So, that's one of the metrics really that I'm looking at in terms of just who makes probably the least amount of mistakes in this game in terms of penalties, turnovers, big things like that. Things that are really difficult to predict. I totally agree with your point.
Yeah, by the way, we also have an awesome giveaway here at Still Hands. So, again, if you're in the area, you've been thinking about maybe getting out, finding something to do tonight, just come on over, Casey, South Carolina. If you're in Columbia, if you're in this area, you probably already are well aware of where it is. But if you're just in town for the game, throw it in your Google Maps or your Apple Maps and come on down. We've got it. It's actually about $350 worth in this giveaway right now. All you got to do is put your name, your email address in, and we got some hats, a bag, I think some gift cards that would allow you to get some free alcohol. We got a year to Gamecock Central in there as well. Hopefully Shu's okay with that. I didn't actually ask. We're just rolling with it.
We roll with it.
I think we'll be okay. But yeah, so come on down, hang out. We'll talk some ball and throw your email on this list. But Chris, we wrote our keys to victory, and that's on Gamecock Central right now, of course, every Friday. And man, I actually got to thinking about something that Pearson said this morning during 107.5. And yes, this game is going to come down to all those things that you and I were just talking about. What happens if all those things are just a wash? Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Marshawn Lloyd is blossoming into a great running back. Like, this guy is really, really, really good. Devon A-Chain, this guy is really, really good. Both sides, I believe, are going to be in a position to get their back the football. Both sides, I believe, are going to have some room to run. They're going to have some room to operate. So once you kind of get past that whole, run the game, stop, run the ball, stop the run, where do you sort of land? For me, that's where I kind of circled all the way back around to the person we were talking about at the beginning of this season, that being Spencer Rattler. And I think when I say that, I don't mean a 5-touchdown, 300-yard performance.
Right.
I don't think that's necessary. I don't think it's one of those things where they have to put it on him. I think it's more a situation where if both sides are running the football pretty well, both secondaries, which I think are strengths for both teams, are playing well, can he make those really important, sometimes tough, split-second decisions? Do you force the ball in there? Do you tuck it and run? That's something I thought he did a great job with in the second half against Kentucky, was when do I put the ball in danger or kind of try to make that brilliant throw, and when do I just get forward? So I think for me, Pearson may have been onto something. It may not be that it comes down to Rattler in the stat department, but if Rattler can outperform Haynes King, that certainly could push this game into South Carolina's favor if it's kind of like what we saw for most of the last 3 games, and certainly like what we saw in the second half against Kentucky.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, Spencer Rattler, a lot of people are kind of focusing on the fumble in that game against Kentucky, and the interception, which wasn't really. We've seen some of Spencer Rattler's interceptions this year, Wes, have kind of been like decision making, where hey, you threw that ball too late, or you didn't need to throw that ball. The interception against Kentucky was not a bad idea. We saw him make that same throw to Austin Stogner a bunch, like that exact route, that exact throw. We've seen him make that. He just underthrew the football. There was another throw in that game. I think it was intended for Juju, where he kind of grounded it. Marcus Satterfield said earlier this week that he came off the field making fun of himself for missing that throw. The fumble was probably the worst play of that game, but missing in that, hidden in there because of how South Carolina played defensively and how Marshawn Lloyd ran the football, is the fact that, he did a really good job, like you said, of extending some plays, running the football. He picked up a key first down. He would get 2 yards here and there. That throw that we continue talking about, man, the little kind of arrow route to Josh Vann, great throw, underrated. You didn't think much of it watching TV, or if you're in Lexington watching live. That's not an easy throw. He made it look easy. There was a little throw where he was rolling out to Juice Wells. He drops it in between a couple defenders. Didn't look hard because it's not hard for Spencer because of his arm talent. But plays like that, those are the ones that he has to make. Haynes King, he has a knack. Watching him against Alabama was kind of interesting because he also gets out of the pocket a lot, kind of like Spencer, and he has a knack for making plays, but he'll also make mistakes. And so it might come down to, if A-Chain has a good game and Lloyd has a good game, both defenses play pretty well, it might come down to things like turnovers, and if not that, which kickers are making their kicks, which quarterback is playing cleaner, not which quarterback has a 300-yard game, but who's making a big throw on 3rd and 5, who's extending a play, who's running for 6 yards on 3rd and 5.
Yeah, man, I think Haynes King is kind of at that point as a quarterback where there is some pressure on him to perform, I feel like. And you look, every quarterback I feel like goes through this cycle where you come in, everybody's excited, everybody's ready to see you perform, especially if you're highly rated. It's kind of a thing of like, that you haven't made any mistakes yet, so everybody's kind of just ready to see what you got. Well, once you make a mistake or two, everybody starts to get ready for the next guy, and it is especially tough when you're not winning. So I think when you're sitting there 3-3, some of you may have heard it yesterday when Tim joined us. Did you hear him say that they thought 10-2 was the downside?
He said disaster. Woo!
That 10-2 would be a disaster for Texas A&M. So
yeah,
if that's your expectation, and you're now 3-3, everybody's looking for somebody to blame.
Sure.
So if you're the quarterback on that team, and let's be honest, their offense has not been good, man. It just really hasn't. The blame's going to go a good bit to him. So, I think when you look at that, and now you're looking at, there's a 5-star freshman who may or may not play this week for Texas A&M. I wonder how he responds if this game is tight early on, if the crowd, we know the crowd's going to be in it to start. So how does all that sort of affect his play tonight? And even from a bigger picture here, man, Jimbo Fisher, I'm sure there's some people saying he possibly mismanaged the quarterback room when you look at all the guys they have had on their campus, and guys transferring in, guys transferring out, and how in today's college football, if you make a decision on a guy, right, that has a effect on other guys in that they end up hitting the portal.
There's some interesting carryover here. Let's go back to this offseason for South Carolina and for A&M. So last year's starter was Zach Calzada at A&M. If you remember, he beat Bama. Played the game of his life against Alabama, knocked those guys off when they were number one. Fantastic performance. Max Johnson hits the portal from LSU and is considering South Carolina, along with his younger brother, who was a 2023 high school tight end prospect. He ends up going to A&M after Jimbo Fisher decides to pull the trigger on bringing in Max Johnson. And a lot of people are going, why are you bringing in Max Johnson? You have Zach Calzada. You have Haynes King, who is a highly rated prospect and is the son of a Texas high school football coach. And he ends up recruiting, obviously, Connor Weigman in the 2022 class, who was a big-time recruit who Jimbo's really talked up. And so it looked like he had that decision to make. Do I bring in Max Johnson? Well, he decided he was going to do that. Zach Calzada hits the portal, and that was a little bit before the Spencer Rattler thing advanced. So Spencer Rattler ends up in South Carolina. So some interesting kind of carryover there. Now Calzada leaves. He goes to Auburn, loses the job, gets injured. Max Johnson gets to Texas A&M, doesn't win the job, gets the job, gets injured. So it's been kind of a carousel over there, and it's been really interesting. Jimbo Fisher actually earlier this week, and Tim Verghese mentioned this when we had him on earlier this week, Connor Weigman, possibility that he plays. I mean, the door kind of seems open to that, so it will be interesting to see, how that works. I mean, they do need a spark on offense. Sometimes the way you do that is try to change your quarterback.
It feels kind of like one of those things, and I'm just going to try to put the people in our shoes a little bit. It feels like one of those things where we'll be told, like, hey, look out for this guy this week, or hey, they are preparing to play this guy this week. And just from what I've read, from what Tim said and what I've read from some other Texas A&M media folks all week long, it just feels like the word there is that Weigman's going to get a chance in this game. Now, we both know how many times have we sort of been told, hey, this is going to happen or this could happen, and the game gets flowing and something gets scrapped or it doesn't necessarily play out like that. So I don't think you can definitively say he's going to play, but it just feels to me, having followed college ball a long time, that they're going to insert him in there at some point, unless, of course, they just come out and the offense is just rolling and, everything's going well. That can be dangerous in some ways, but it can also, like you said, it can spark your offense, and you can almost tell, you can almost feel it when a guy comes in and adds a little bit of energy to your offense.
Well, you think back to the Kentucky game, right? Destin Wade, who is a recruit out of Tennessee for Kentucky, that was something they mentioned during the broadcast. You know how the broadcasters will talk to the coaches during the week, get a little insight that they kind of embargo until the broadcast. And that was something they mentioned. Hey, Mark Stoops told us they had some stuff in for Destin Wade. They didn't end up going to it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were wondering after the game, why didn't you go to it? Because you're kind of struggling on offense in this game. So we'll see. Obviously, South Carolina would love to force that issue. You want A&M to struggle early. This is a series in which you haven't had a lot of success. Different teams, right? Different coaching staffs for most of the series, but certainly last year got off to a horrible start for South Carolina, and neither of these teams have started particularly fast. So that's another kind of little subplot in here, is who can start faster. Certainly defensively, if you're South Carolina, you would like to force Haynes King into some mistakes. Connor Weigman's a very, very talented guy. Maybe he would have a great game, but you could do worse than having a true freshman, come into an environment like we expect in Williams-Brice Stadium.
Yeah, speaking of the environment, I think you can always tell when there's a massive game coming up and the fans are like in it. The buzz starts to build throughout the week, I feel like, and I feel like throughout this week, the excitement level for this game, just coming off the Kentucky win, then it has a chance. I think you mentioned this. It's kind of built up a little bit because there was a bye week in between. So I feel like even right here, it's still hands tonight. These people are ready to watch some football. They're ready to hang out. They're ready to tailgate. The season, I don't want to say it was on the brink. That's like dramatic. But you could feel the fan base before the Kentucky game starting to lose a little edge, lose a little excitement. I feel like they got it back instantly with the win over Kentucky, and now they are ready. And a point I'm going to get to here in a second, man, sets up a great opportunity for South Carolina tomorrow night.
It does. I mean, the anticipation of this game is huge. I think the fact that they've had a layoff since the Kentucky game has probably built that even more. I think people would have been excited if this game took place, last Saturday. But the fact that you got to wait even a little bit longer, even for Gamecock football, I think is playing into it. People have moved their plans around a little bit. The game's obviously sold out again. Expecting a great environment there. But yeah, huge opportunity because look, this A&M game has gone now from, you mentioned earlier, a couple swing games coming in, even into this season, preseason, Arkansas and Kentucky that they played. They split those games. For me, A&M wasn't in the swing game category before the season. Even though it's at home, that was one of the ones where you go, that's going to be a tough out. It is now, I think, firmly shifted into swing game status. And so that has people even more excited. It's gone a little bit too extreme at times where people are, and if you're outright expecting a win or saying South Carolina should win, that might be a little bit too rich for my taste. But no doubt they've got a solid shot to win, and that should be exciting because that would get you first win in the series, a second straight SEC win, put you even in the conference.
Four straight wins as a team.
4 straight wins as a team, and it gets you, of course, one step closer to bowl eligibility, which is a nice benchmark for this team in year 2 of Shane Beamer's era.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're trying to continue the winning streak of this current team while ending the winning streak that A&M has against you, and I think you're right. It has so going into the Kentucky game, things had gotten a little too doom and gloom, where Carolina wasn't near as bad or as struggling of a football team as some people wanted you to believe, coming off of 2 just absolute blowouts. So teams they should have blown out, but they went out and did their job, right?
Yeah.
And people were still way too doom and gloom against going into this game against Kentucky. Well, it does shift, and that to me is the ebb and the flow, the roller coaster of a season. I mean, think back to last year. How many times earlier in the season, South Carolina fans sort of got disappointed or upset? And then think back to, I remember going into that Florida game. There really was not a ton of excitement, in my opinion. Not to the level you guys normally have for an SEC East game with Florida at home. And then South Carolina wins the game. South Carolina starts to build some momentum. It's funny how much true confidence can build within a team and how they can sort of ride that wave. So that's the question for me going into this game, man. Is it a situation where everyone's getting a little too up over beating Kentucky? What's up? How you doing? Or is it a situation where South Carolina is about to ride this wave again, build confidence within the team? Young guys have played more and more, and they're going to put themselves in a position to be to have a special year, basically.
Well, and that's the question. I know, not to plagiarize something I said in our last show, but I mentioned Luke
You can
Gay
do
this
that.
offseason. Yeah, let's
You
just
said
do
it.
it. I said it, so I'll do it. He mentioned how they would have these extreme highs and extreme lows last season. I mean, you can think of it. You think about Auburn and Florida, these highs. Clemson, extreme low. Tennessee, extreme low. Texas A&M, big time low. So can this team put together back-to-back strong performances? I mean, how invigorated would the fan base be? How much confidence would that give this team? Going into, when you think of the Orange Crush, it's going to be tough this year, but how much confidence do you get going into Missouri where you have a chance to go be bowl eligible and break a win streak against Missouri if you can do it against A&M first? So no doubt, just go back to that general point about how huge of an opportunity this is.
Yeah, you look at the list of recruits, they're going to be there. And, Chris, I'm not one of these guys that's like get into the whole, especially at this point, program defining win and, these like hyperbolic things people like to say. When Carolina gets to a point where they're competing for the division, if divisions exist anymore in the near future. But you know what I'm saying. When they get to the point where they're competing for a title, then we can use those phrases. But so we're not going to go there. But I think what this does do is gives you, if they can win, gives you another win you point to in recruiting, gives you some momentum. keeps the fan base off of you for a little bit longer, and really puts you in a position. I mean, it's what, Missouri next?
Yep.
I mean, now you're talking about, I believe that's homecoming.
Yep.
It's obviously another big home game. Fan base it sort of snowballs. Like, I feel like football is one of those things that can snowball for you one way. If you're A&M, you're trying to avoid the snowball backslide, basically, where the ball comes rolling back down and hits you, I feel like. So I think you get these opportunities, and we talked about this earlier in the week. Carolina missed on some opportunities during the Muschamp era. Like, opportunities to bring your program forward, opportunities to put yourself in a position to sign better players in some cases. And now with a loaded group of prospects set to hit your campus Saturday night, you got a very winnable game that could put you in a position to be 5-2 and be one win away from bowl eligibility already.
Well, I mean, we saw how much fun this team had after the Kentucky game. And it was a very meaningful win for Shane Beamer, for this team, for obvious reasons. They win against A&M. It might even be even more fun. You know, there's no off-season sniping or anything like that, but these guys will have a good time if that happens. And there's no doubt that they would leverage it in recruiting. I mean, you look at A&M, they've gotten so much, deserved buzz for the way that they've been recruiting, the types of talents they're bringing in. Their class in 2022, Wes, was historically good, right? Just the amount of talent they brought in. What can South Carolina do? They can go and point to all these recruits that are there, even the ones that weren't there. Hey, you need to come check this place out. Look at what we just did. You know, we just took down A&M. They're loaded with talent, et cetera, and we beat them, and check out this environment. There'd be a ton of social media videos. Shane Beamer will be hyped up. I mean, it would be huge for this team if they could do that on the recruiting trail. Man, we updated the list earlier. It's on GamecockCentral.com from the 2023 class, where there's some key guys that are both committed and uncommitted, all the way down 2027 class.
Oh, yeah. Man.
We are getting old. Only one guy that I have from that class on the list, but there are multiple 2026 guys even that have big-time offers already. So certainly the meat of it is 23, 24, a lot of 25 guys, Wes. We're talking national-level recruits, regional recruits that a lot of the big-time programs are recruiting. Dylan Stewart from Washington, D.C., this will be his third trip to South Carolina, first game. Guys like him, they're just kind of littered up and down this list.
Yeah, let me just say, I did have to take a moment. That's the first time I've seen 2027 written.
Take a moment
on the site. Have you written that?
Oh,
before then?
No, absolutely not.
If you're a 2027 recruit and you've been invited to a game for if anyone's even hinted, hey, you should come out, you're pretty good and we're pretty old. Is like that's my takeaway on that. But man, this list, I mean, you get down through it, bunch of committed guys as expected. Those guys have been good about getting to campus and getting to know each other and kind of just being around the program. But I think the strength in this list, Chris, is first of all most interesting guy or most interesting development, Khalifa Keith from Parker in Birmingham, Alabama, a guy South Carolina just offered, a Kentucky commitment, someone that I think we're about to see South Carolina, I wrote this week, just try to make a big push for. I think there's mutual interest. He is, like I said, committed to Kentucky, but you said he visited Tennessee a couple times.
They just offered?
Yeah, they just offered him this week. And really, I think he strikes me as someone who is interested in hearing what other people have to say.
Yeah.
So you look at some of South Carolina's ties they have to his school. I think this is a name for fans to keep an eye on and to know. But then my eyes got drawn to that 2024 list.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like 4-star after 4-star after 4-star. And this is when you start to kind of build those relationships and build those memories for players to where these are the guys you're going to be recruiting into the offseason and into next summer for official visits.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go to a guy that I just mentioned, Dylan Stewart. It's kind of hard to believe, first of all, that you've got a national level recruit, which Dylan Stewart is, one of the top edge prospects in the country from Washington, D.C., Friendship Academy. Hard to believe you've already gotten him on campus twice before his junior year, in the spring and in the summer. So you do that. But now you're about to have him 3 times in one calendar year before his junior season's over. And he has offers from about everybody. So good job by Sterling Lucas. Good job the staff getting in on him early. And then you have a guy like Josiah Thompson from Dillon who's been to campus 16 times. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
probably been to campus a ton. So there are guys that they're attracting for the first or second time, and then there's also some guys where they've been recruiting him for a really long time, had him on campus, for the third time, fourth time, fifth time, or even more. And that's the type of thing that you have to do in building these long-term relationships to be in position to when it's time to make a decision. It's hard for a guy to tell you no.
Careful, Chris. They will yell at you if you touch the table.
Yeah, I got a little fired up on that one.
Yeah, I'm the sun is driving me insane. But we're here. What's up,
plugging up along doing this?
Yes, sir. Live right now. Hey, sign up and get your $350 prize package here if you win. Yeah. We're live at Still Hands, by the way. Come on down and you can sign up as well. $350 value on this tailgating package they put together for us. And Chris, look like you need another beverage there. And you are prepared. We got a great group. I think there's some live music going to start in about 20 minutes. George Rogers has appeared here. We have a lot going on. But yeah, recruiting, man, we got a question there about Sellers from South Florence. That's Lenore Sellers, quarterback. That's a kid I've always been very intrigued by. And the attention from South Carolina and the attention from what I hear, Chris, from some other major schools has been building as well. So I'm not sure if there's a guy in the state that has upped their status on the recruiting radar more than Lenore Sellers right now.
Well, we saw him this summer, and he was impressive in 7-on-17 passing camp in Columbia. Notably, Wes, I saw him last year against Irmo High, which, of course, featured Nick Eminwari at the time. Nick, by the way, you remember how many tackles he had last year at Irmo?
243 and a half.
It was literally, they had him for 200 something, which I'd never heard of. But, when you first see that stat, you're like, there's no way. And then you're like, I could probably see it. You watch him play, you're like, yeah, I can see it. But yeah, I saw Sellers play Irmo last year, and dude, I mean, they scored 63 points in that game. And that's kind of become a common occurrence for South Florence with Lenore Sellers. What was it? 7 touchdowns? 9 touchdowns. He was
credited with 9 touchdowns.
9 touchdowns the other day.
I need to see that, but I said according to this because I was like, I need to witness 9
Go back
touchdowns
and check the tape
for me to say that. But he's been doing that in the first half of these games is the crazy thing.
Yeah, I mean, he's a bigger kid. He can run, and he's also got a really, really good arm. I mean, he's got a nice release, can make the throws. Very intriguing prospect. And honestly, I'm surprised. He was committed to Virginia? Formerly.
Yeah.
Now Syracuse. A little bit surprised that there hasn't been like even bigger Power 5 interest. Not to knock those schools, but I'm surprised, that he hasn't blown up even more given the production and the tools that he has.
Yeah, I got a feeling it's happening. Like I think it's, dude. You know how these things work. It's gonna be go for it. It's gonna be one of those things where one big, and no offense to Syracuse, but one, we'll say bigger Southeast type program, offers, and then there'll be 5 more. Like I really think that's what is going to happen because it's so hard to keep track of. So there's so many high school football players, it's hard to keep track of all these guys, I feel like. And coaches will tell you they don't copy other programs, but let's be honest.
The evidence shows otherwise.
Yes, let's be honest. So I think Carolina very, very interested. I think they'll offer. I think it's been trending towards an offer. I'll say it like that. And if they do, I think that they'll be in a position to make him think twice. Now, you got to remember there are relationships here. From what I understand, he really likes that coaching staff and really likes their offense. Really likes what they're doing offensively. Their offense coordinator as well. Dino Babers was at the game when he scored 9 touchdowns. So I think this is going to be one of those things where it'll be very interesting to see, does the hometown home state SEC school or do the relationships sort of win out? Assuming, we're playing this, we're assuming, he ends up getting an offer if that happens.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be really a surprise either way. You could understand either way. Syracuse's offense, when it has been humming in the past, Dino Babers has gone through actually several offensive coordinators since he's been at Syracuse, but we have seen some versions of it where it's hummed, and when it does, it looks pretty fun. And it looks like an offense that Lenore Sellers, a guy like him with his skill set, could have a lot of success in. But think about the opportunity to play it out right down the road. That can happen too. We've seen it both ways. We've seen guys that have been committed to other schools that have been unable to say no to the home state appeal, and we've seen some guys that have been unable to come off of those long-standing relationships. So if he gets the offer officially, we'll kind of see what happens then.
Yeah, and I think even when guys truly believe in those relationships, sometimes, Xavier Short last year.
Yeah.
I think Xavier, I think he loved App State. Like, I think he would have gone there and been very, very happy with that decision. But especially for a guy growing up in Chapin, it was just kind of like, this is a dream come true.
Right.
I can't say no. So, I think that'll be very interesting if it comes to that, to see how that plays out. And, I think from what I've heard, man, there are some other major programs that are sniffing around as well. And it's just going to be about who kind of starts this avalanche. And, we saw him, we've seen him in multiple 7-on-7 situations now. I think that was last year. We saw him this past summer. We saw him last year as well. And dude, I saw him out there throwing at some point with some of his younger wide receivers, and you could tell just the sheer velocity that he was throwing the football was giving some guys some trouble.
I remember, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. That was very much a college-ready type quarterback throwing to some guys that were not as college ready.
Guys.
Yeah, some JV guys. And so, yeah. But, the tools are there. And watch him play, he's extremely efficient, and a whole lot about his game that you can see why South Carolina is intrigued, and some others.
Yeah, and I think important to note, could be a 4-star guy before it's all said and done. So this is not South Carolina just sort of being lukewarm on a guy. Like, if the offer comes through, it's because they are very high on him, and I think it's a tremendously high upside guy, and who I think will play very well in college. And he actually has a younger brother as well. That's going to be something to keep an eye on. Younger brother is 2025 recruit, I believe. So that would be something to keep an eye on down the road. I believe Syracuse has offered younger brother, or at least has recruited him pretty hard. So that's another thing to keep an eye on there with that decision. So again, y'all, we're at Steel Hands right now. We got folks signing up for the giveaway right here. It's actually a tremendous little tailgating package that Steel Hands has put together, valued at $350. We're going to draw for that later on tonight. Crowd is rolling in. Music is starting, I believe, in about 12 minutes, Chris. So we'll probably go about 12 minutes more, I guess, as well. Anybody else recruiting-wise want to get to?
We could spend a lot of time on it, but here's one I'll kind of narrow it down.
Probably do a whole show.
We could do a whole show just on the list, and that might be a whole show next week, just depending. But Terrence Love is one I would mention out of the 2023 class. Go kind of a guy who's in this cycle makes sense to me if we don't have that much time. You mentioned Khalifa Keith, who's the running back committed to Kentucky. Well, Terrence Love is a linebacker prospect, plays receiver and DB at high school level, but you look at him, big kid. South Carolina thinks he could be a linebacker at the next level. He's one to watch. Auburn, Terrence Love committed to Auburn. He loves Auburn, the atmosphere, but you've probably seen they've had some issues in Auburn.
I have seen that.
They probably going to have a new coaching staff, and so there'll be a lot of interesting things to see how it plays out, right? Like when there is inevitably a change in Auburn, who is it? What does Terrence Love think of that? How does he vibe with the new coaching staff? But South Carolina slipped in. They offered in August. This will be, I think, Wes's first visit to campus, his first proper visit to campus for a game. And so, we'll see how it goes this weekend. But he is intrigued by South Carolina. They're certainly intrigued by him.
Yeah, first visit for a game. We'll have to double check. I think he popped into campus once.
I think it was here this summer.
Yeah, for during camp, not for camp, but during camp. I believe with a group of people. But that's one you've been talking about for a while. It'll be interesting to see if South Carolina can make a move. And you got it, dude. You got to imagine these other SEC schools are looking at Auburn and ready to pounce at this point because it's just seems apparent there's going to be a change there. And it's so weird when you're halfway through a season and it's already just pretty much a foregone conclusion there's going to be a change at your place. So we'll see how that plays out in recruiting. But Chris, let's by the way, another name, Jonathan Paylor from North Carolina.
That's a big one. Big
time wide receiver. Priority target for South Carolina and a guy to keep an eye on. Let's get into our predictions. I know if you were on the site, you already know because the whole staff prediction piece is up. But I believe we disagree with our final scores, but I think we're on the same page with how it's going to play out.
Yeah. Did we agree on the how it's going to play out?
Well, we agree on how. I feel like we agree on the.
Oh, you meant okay.
The flow of the game. We
Okay.
disagree on
the outcome.
the winner.
Yeah. So it's prediction time officially.
I believe it is.
Yeah, I think it is.
It is here.
Yeah. So I mean, just to reiterate, I expect a close game. I expect a lower scoring game. Going to come down to a few plays, probably who makes the least amount of mistakes. So I think South Carolina finally. I think we disagree on this too. Finally wins the turnover margin in this game. I've got South Carolina 24, Texas A&M 20 in this game.
Okay, I dig it. Chris, I do disagree with you. I think that I think it's going to be a tight game. What score did you say?
24-20 South Carolina.
24-20. So I have 23-17, and I think that what's up, man? Good to see you. I think that like all week long, I literally went back and forth on score, or the score was the same. I just went back and forth on who had 23 and who had 17.
Just kept the score the same.
And
I like it.
When we had to send in our predictions, I probably changed it 3 times. But ultimately, I decided on that I can't predict South Carolina to win this game until they win this game. Until they beat Texas A&M, I can't, in good conscience, predict it.
Yeah.
And I do hope that I'm wrong on that because it would be a much more fun week on Gamecock Central, on Gamecock Twitter.
Yeah.
Probably a lot more fun here at Still Hands if that happens. But I think I'm getting very distracted. There's stuff happening everywhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
And I got one more sponsor we got to talk about as well. But Chris, if they win the turnover battle, like you predicted, then that could be the key to my prediction being wrong. And I think, special teams has been such a weapon for them this year. As Parker White just walked by, I got to say, last year against A&M, you brought this up. Not only did they not win the special teams battle, they gave up a key big 95-yard punt return for touchdown right as the game started, basically.
Yeah.
So if you flip that maybe it's a little different this year in what should be a really, really tight game.
Yeah, I mean, the upside of last year, the good play last year, I mean, 73 punt yards, or a 73-yard punt from Kai Kroger, but there wasn't much good in that game at all. 73-yard punt, but I think it's South Carolina's first possession. They have to punt, 95-yard return, and now you're in a hole. And they obviously dug a big hole in that game. So, yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, not giving up any big plays on special teams, sure, but also, the hidden yards here and just the field position battle, the turnovers, those things, and what we expect to be a close game are going to be critical.
No doubt, man. Got to throw a shout out to our friends at Liberty Tax as well, 803-462-5576. Shout out to our friend Larry for supporting the show. There are Liberty Tax locations all over the Columbia area. There's one in Irmo, one in Lexington, and one in Columbia proper as well. You got 1123 South Lake Drive, Lexington, 7467 St. Andrews Road, Irmo, 551 St. Andrews Road, Columbia. That's 29210. Area code 803-462-5576. If you owe debt to the IRS, basically, if you need any help with anything involving your taxes or your business bookkeeping services, give a shout to Liberty Tax, 803-462-5576. I've seen all kinds of people all of a sudden. Jay Urick is here. Connor Shaw is here. Parker White is here. Forgetting somebody. Beckham just said, did Connor Shaw just walk in? Yes, he did. So, yeah, if you're in town, come on down to Still Hands. We'll be here a little bit longer. You can sign up and you can sign up and possibly win this $350 valued package. And you'll get great service as well as Chris just got.
Amazing. Wow.
What do you think, man? There's going to be a good crowd here.
It's going to be a great crowd. It has grown, exponentially. I didn't want to be too dramatic there. Big crowd here. We got oysters, Wes.
Oysters.
It's oyster time. So, come on out to Steel Hands. Check it out. Music's about to be starting in, 5 minutes?
Yep.
I'm sure that'll be
5-minute
fantastic
countdown.
as always. Great. Feels amazing out here tonight. Not going to be too cold even when the sun goes down. So come hang out outside here at Steel Hands. Check out some music, some oysters. See some famous people.
Apparently.
Apparently.
And who knows who may show up later on. So, all right, y'all, we're going to get out of here. We'll have one more streaming deal tomorrow morning before the sandstorm. Myself, Kendall Smith, as always, where I'll give my final thoughts on the game if I've changed my mind about anything between now and then. But, hey, appreciate y'all. Appreciate all the support. And shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Scott. Happy birthday to Scott.
Yep.
He's 25 again, I hear. 27. Okay. So, come on down to Steel Hands. It's a great time. I guess we'll see them all after the game, huh?
That's right.
All right. See y'all.